Hello, welcome to our presentation for our Quick Trip fuel station proposed at the northwest corner of Pierce and Colfax, located in Lakewood, Colorado. Our Planning Commission hearing is scheduled for August 6th, 2025. Quick agenda that we'll run through is we're going to go through some introduction, timeline of how we got to where we are today, a site location and existing zoning, some site-specific details, a review of our applicable criteria. We'd like to review some site renderings with y'all, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Introductions. I am Shelby Mindred with Kinley Horn. My partner, Jeff Plank, will be joining at the Physical Planning Commission meeting, along with Jessica Glavis and Craig Rommel with Quick Trip. And with me today is Carolyn White, our Land Use Counsel with BHFS. Few facts about Quick Trip. It was founded in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1958 with the purpose to provide opportunities for employees to grow and succeed. Quick Trip is privately owned and operated by families and employees, and they strive to be the top-tier convenience store operator, emphasizing cleanliness and customer service. Each location has a full-service kitchen and a variety of made-to-order fresh food. To date, they have never laid off a single employee in the history of the company, and annually contribute 5% of profits to charitable organization in the local communities that it operates. So let's go over where we are today versus where we started. In September 2020, we submitted for pre-planning comments. We submitted our first SUP submittal in June 2021. We had a neighborhood meeting in January 2022. Following our second submittal of our SUP in February 2022, we had a second neighborhood meeting to engage the community and solicit feedback. At that time, we were notified by the city that we are required to submit a CLOMR for the floodplain that our site is within, which we'll review a little bit later. In October 2023, that process took a few months, all the way through April 2024, where we submitted to a comfortable position for both the city and FEMA. Then in September 2024, we submitted our conditional land use permit for our first submittal. We hosted a third neighborhood meeting since it had been a while in September 2024. Then in December, we submitted our second conditional land use permit, following our third in March, our fourth in April, to where we are today in our Planning Commission in August 2025. We also did some additional outreach that we wanted to highlight. In January 2022, we joined the West Colfax Community Association to introduce and discuss the project. In July of 2022, we met with the city to discuss the site opportunities to meet criteria and just brainstorm how we can make the site more compliant with regulations. In September 2022, we met with the BID to discuss possibilities for art on site, and those conversations are still ongoing. We met with the city in 2023 again to discuss with BID elevations and potential for the art studio. In October of 2023, we presented the project and our ideas to the West Colfax Community Association. And in June 2024, we presented the project for our ideas to the 40 West Arts Board. So as you can see, we've engaged a lot of stakeholders that are part of this project from January 2022 to today. So now we'll go over the site location and zoning. Our site is located at the northwest corner of Pierce Street and Colfax Avenue. You can see here on the screen in blue. The site has existing structures on it that are vacant to date that will be removed as part of this project. The site zoning is known as Mixed Use General Urban, or MGU. The convenience store portion of the project is an allowable use by right. The fuel station requires a special use permit. Our site is located here in the red box. As you can see, surrounding the site is additional MGU zoning consistent with our site development. Some site-specific details we wanted to share with y'all. North is up on this, and Pierce is to the right, Lakewood Place to the north of our site, and Colfax Avenue to the south. You will see two highlights of sidewalks. The blue sidewalks are part of our project development. The pink sidewalks are collaboration with the city on sidewalk improvements that are being completed as part of city improvement projects. There are two plaza seating areas north of the building. You'll see noted here in hatched dark areas. There's a future art studio in the upper left corner of the project. We're still working on what that looks like. We're working with 40 Arts and some other stakeholders to understand what would best serve the community in this area. We are proposing a meandering sidewalk with art features on the west side of the site to promote 40 West Art Line. Again, we'll be working with them, hopefully, to commission some art and have some local artists feature their designs in this area. Last but not least, we have some EV parking up to the north of the project that will be used, that the community can utilize. Just pointing out some other features, our building is located in the bottom right corner of the site at the corner of Pierce Street and Colfax, and the fuel canopy is located centralized to the site. Additionally, we have a surface water quality pond in the upper right-hand corner of the site with the low-grade full spectrum treatment just to the south of that will discharge to the public storm sewer system within Pierce Street. The sculpture walk that I mentioned earlier, it'll have pedestrian connectivity between Colfax and Lakewood Place. Pedestals will be placed along that walk in intervals for sculptures to be placed on. Like I mentioned earlier, sculpture programming is proposed to be managed and procured by 40 West Arts District. This is still ongoing in coordination and collaboration with the district. And the meandering sidewalk will allow pedestrians to enjoy the sculptures as if they were in a small art gallery and still connect those two streets together. The container art studio that I mentioned previously, again, we're still working at what this looks like. It'll be on the northwest corner of the site, located at the terminus of the sculpture walk. Again, the design is pending, but the intent is for a small gallery with an artist in residence that may be rotating, maybe not. Again, we are proposing collaboration with the 40 West Arts District on designing and programming of what this looks like ultimately. This will help activate the site with art that sits along the 40 West Art Line. Those pedestrian areas that I noted previously, one of them is directly north of the structure pictured here in the rendering. It is adjacent to our store entry. Customers will be able to grab their food, sit outside, enjoy the nice weather on the north side of the structure. Space for customers and artists to just relax and enjoy the outdoors. And again, provides an area for those walking to the West 40 West Art Line to take a quick look or a quick break. Our building elevations are compliant with these city requirements for structures in the MGU district. As you can see, we have 360-degree architecture. What this means is that every side of the structure, the front, rear, north, and south and side elevations all appear as though they are a main entry. There's not one side of the structure that looks like a back of house or ugly, unattractive building, if you will. The fuel canopy elevation is very similar. The architecture does match the primary building with the same materials and colors, and it has an aluminum canopy with a red stripe, indicative of the Quick Trip branding, but also compliant with the city requirements for materials and colors. Traffic safety, we always want to highlight traffic. We understand developments can impact traffic. We are, with this proposed development, closing 2 existing access points to the site, one on Pierce and one on Colfax, as you can see in that bottom left-hand corner. This will help clear traffic along both of those roadways and minimize congestion along those roads. Additionally, we are adding detached sidewalks around the site. Again, those blue sidewalks are the sidewalks being proposed as part of this project. The pink are the city improvements for sidewalks along the south and east side of the site. The green circles you see on the right-hand photo are the proposed access point locations. As you can see, it is one access point on Colfax Avenue and another on Lakewood Place. So now we're going to go over a review of the applicable criteria related to this project.
Hello, this is Carolyn White, Land Use Counsel with Brownstein for the project, and I'm going to review some of the applicable criteria and how this project meets all of the criteria. As you know, this is an application for a special use in the MGU zone district, and as such, it is required to comply with the criteria set forth in section 17.2.4.2 of the Lakewood Code. These criteria are summarized on this slide, and we'll walk through each of those and how the project meets each of these criteria. So first we look at Whether the proposed use is consistent with the applicable supplemental standards set forth in Article 4. Article 4 contains use-specific standards for a variety of different uses, including those which are considered special review uses in certain zone districts. For fueling stations, the supplemental criteria are summarized in subsection M, and we have listed some of them here on this slide. The first criterion under subsection M, in turn, cross-references a different set of standards in Chapter 7, 17.7.6.3.b. So first, let's turn to those in 17.7.6.3.b, and then we'll come back to this slide to look at the other criteria in subsection M. This is the list of cross-referenced criteria in 17.7.6.3.b. Let's turn to this list. As you will see, this list overlaps a little bit with some of the other general criteria we're required to comply with set forth in section 6 and 7. But for example, a fuel station must front on an arterial or a collector. Colfax is designated as an arterial in Lakewood Moves and on the city's street classification map, so that criterion is met. The next criterion deals with how the building and the pump canopy are located on the site. As Shelby just demonstrated, the site plan meets this criteria. The pump canopy is located to the side of the building, and the building is otherwise situated in order to meet the requirements set forth in this criterion. The pump canopy must also meet the architectural style of the main building. And in order to illustrate this, I'll just turn back to this slide. You can see that graphic in the lower left corner shows how the architecture of the pump canopy meets and matches the architecture of the main building. It also is less than 20 feet in height as required by criterion 4. Criterion 5 talks about landscaping and the landscaping plan. At this stage in the process, typically a landscaping plan is not provided. That will be part of the site plan, which is the next stage in the process after the conditional permit is approved. So we will be providing a complete landscape plan that meets this criterion at the next stage of the process. And the last criterion is not applicable. So that's all of the cross-reference criteria in Chapter 7. So let's go back to the main Article 4 list of criterion in subsection M. And then we already dealt with criterion number 1. Let's look at number 2. Canopy is provided to shield the fueling islands and fueling operations from precipitation. You can see here that is definitely the case. And then criterion number 3 is the distance requirement, which we know you're all familiar with and have dealt with on other applications. A fueling station may not be located within 1,000 feet of another fuel station. This map here on the lower right of the screen illustrates that that is in fact true for this location. A larger version of this map showing that no other fuel stations are located within 1,000 feet was included with the application and should be included within your packets. So now I'll turn it over to Shelby to talk about the special use criterion B and C.
As Carolyn mentioned, the standards set forth within Article 5 of the zoning ordinance are more specific to the site layout and open space requirements. We have on the site what's called a build to zone requirement. As part of the MGU Zone District 4 fuel station, we are required to meet 27.5% of the build to zone requirement. This means that our building and canopy are within a specific distance to the property line, or in this case, the sidewalk easement for the public sidewalk along the frontage. As you can see with this table that is included within your packet in more detail, we do meet that build to zone. We have 152.4 lineal feet, while 148.94 lineal feet is the requirement. Additionally, the open space requirement is 15%. We have provided that in excess, especially with that meandering sidewalk and landscape along the western portion of the site. Our maximum building height allowed for this zone district is 90 feet. We are well below that. That is not going to be a problem for us to meet. And additionally, that building setback is 20 feet max front and 5 feet max to the side or rear, which facilitates that build to zone requirement that I noted earlier. And we are compliant with all 4 of those. Continuing on to some design standards within Article 6 and 7 of the zoning ordinance that Carolyn mentioned earlier. These include building design standards for architecture, material, colors, and exterior building elements. We have worked closely with the city to ensure that our building and materials for both the building and the canopy are compliant with this ordinance. This on-site circulation standards require sidewalk design to circulate the entire site for pedestrians and have a fluid vehicular design, as you can see there on item 5. so that vehicles can easily circulate the site, both customers, guests, and emergency access. Our landscape design standards, as Carolyn a little bit outlined earlier, we will meet those. Those haven't been, our landscape design hasn't been finished for the project as we are just not to that phase, but we will ensure that landscape design standards are met. Additionally, open and plaza space design standards, as you saw earlier, we are providing multiple open space areas around the site that will be and are compliant with the city standards. We already went over those motor vehicle design elements. Exterior lighting, all lighting will be consistent with the municipal code for cutoff and dark sky requirements. Fence and wall design standards, we do not have any proposed at this time. However, if that changes in the future, we will absolutely be compliant with those standards as required.
The fourth criterion for evaluation under the special use criteria requires consistency with the comprehensive plan. And we know you just adopted a new comprehensive plan. It's called Envision Lakewood 2040. Congratulations on that massive undertaking. But since this application was submitted a few years ago, it is required to be considered under the plan that was in effect at the time of submittal, which is the Lakewood 2025 Moving Forward Together comprehensive plan that was in effect up until the adoption of the new plan. In addition, we also looked at some other adopted city plans, and some of those are listed here on this screen. We'll come back to some of these a little bit later in the presentation, but for now I want to talk about the comprehensive plan, the Lakewood 2025 Moving Forward Together plan. Colfax is designated as a major corridor in the Lakewood 2025 plan, and in keeping with the goals set forth in that plan, this proposed use helps establish an improved image and character and transforms the streetscape, changing the relationship between buildings, autos, and people by installing a detached sidewalk, extensive landscaping, the pedestrian art walk, as well as multiple gathering places within the site. The proposed use is supportive of several of the goals set forth in the chapter called Lakewood Innovates in that 2025 plan, including Goal 1 CS1, CS7, and GA1, all of which relate to new employment opportunities, advancement of economic goals, and transitioning Colfax from a suburban arterial roadway to a complete urban street and a primary economic corridor. The project will improve drainage, add detached sidewalks and extensive landscaping, as well as unique open space area that we have talked about a little bit, and we'll talk about some more here in a bit. The project improves the overall streetscape and aesthetic by redeveloping what is now an obsolete and neglected property into an activated site that is compliant with the West 40 plans, which we'll also talk about here in just a minute. It should also be noted that this property is identified as a growth area in the plan, and as you can see in this graphic on the right, the growth areas are highlighted in purple. This property is located within the purple designated growth area. Growth areas are planned and zoned for higher density and higher intensity of uses, including employment, retail, and residential growth. Growth areas are located along major transportation corridors, as pointed out, which Colfax is, with frequent rail and bus service in addition to automobile access. Let me next hand it back to Shelby to talk about some of the sustainability issues inherent in this project.
So as Carolyn showed us a few screens previous to this, we did take a look at the City of Lakewood Sustainability Plan that was developed to improve the social, environmental, and economic conditions of the Lakewood community to address topics identified through community outreach and best practices from sustainability leaders and organizations around the country, and the EV work plan, which is a roadmap to guide the City of Lakewood operations and policies to support EV adoption. So to address both of those sustainability and EV work plan and be compliant with the Sustainability Article 13, the proposed project site will have EV chargers, building electrification, the use of hydro zones for irrigation, and social connection amenities such as outdoor plaza areas. As you can see in the summary table on the screen, we have achieved 39 points toward those sustainability goals supporting Lakewood's goals.
Finally, the last special use review criterion, E, from section 17.2.4.2, is a requirement that the proposed special use will not substantially impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. When we talk about appropriate, we think about what is allowed under the current zoning and what is desired under the current adopted comprehensive plan and other related plans and goals of the city. So this criterion seeks to preserve the ability for adjacent property owners to be able to use their property in a manner consistent with the zoning and the plans. The surrounding properties all have the same zoning as the subject property, that MGU, which is a mixed-use zone district designed for community commercial uses found primarily along arterial streets and in transit areas. This zoning allows a wide variety of uses from residential to light manufacturing and is designed to allow a higher level of motor vehicle activity, acknowledging that development along major arterials tends to be appropriately more auto-centric. Some of the existing uses are listed on this slide. Nothing about this proposed use will limit the ability of these adjacent property owners to continue to use their properties as they currently are, or to develop them in accordance with the zoning. To the contrary, the improvements to the property will benefit the surrounding uses and set a high bar for new development in terms of public infrastructure and amenities and quality of architecture and materials. Shelby can talk just a little bit more about that.
As Carolyn mentioned, the proposed site will not substantially impair the appropriate use of the adjacent property and will indeed improve the existing area. In the bottom left, again, you've seen this image before, there will be new detached sidewalks and landscaping benefiting the adjacent properties by improving pedestrian access and the overall aesthetic of the area, increasing the impervious and greenscape for the entire site itself. These sidewalks are coordinated in supporting the goals of the Colfax safety plan. There will be underground fuel tanks that are double walled with state-of-the-art leak detection systems. These systems enable Quick Trip to safely install, maintain, and consistently monitor the storage tanks to mitigate spills and negative impacts to the surrounding environment. We understand that in any case, storing fuel underground can be a little nerve-wracking. Quick Trip takes extra precaution to make sure that these underground fuel tanks are no joke, the state-of-the-art to prevent leaks and damage to the environment. Additionally, Quick Trip has state-of-the-art security for all of their sites that monitor the entire property 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which will improve the safety and security of the overall area naturally by having these security on site 24/7. In addition, we wanted to discuss some other elements of the project site and proposed development that will continue to not substantially impair the adjacent property. As many folks may know, there is an existing floodplain boundary through this project site. It's a little hard to see on the screen there, but the yellow line in the upper left-hand corner on that image is the floodplain boundary as it exists today. With the proposed improvements on this project, that yellow line will actually change to be the green and blue lines, which will mitigate impacts to the project property and the building itself. And it has been determined through the Clommer analysis that was submitted to both FEMA and the city of Lakewood that these changes on this site will not negatively impact what's called a rise or cause any flooding improvements on any private property adjacent to the project. Additionally, we are providing water quality on site to both treat and attenuate stormwater that would be generated from the project site. This will mitigate downstream impacts to any properties and treat water for higher water quality. This is a vehicle-oriented use. We want to ensure that that stormwater is given the chance to settle so that all of the contaminants settle and are not conveyed in the public storm and sewer system. As you can see in the photo in the center of the screen, that water quality pond is in the northeast corner of the site. Stormwater will be conveyed via surface and piping to that water quality pond. Once it is treated appropriately, it is then conveyed underground to another stormwater treatment facility that will release at a rate equal to historic rates from the site. So if the site was not developed, as to not inundate the downstream system and mitigate impacts to adjacent properties.
And finally, even though it's not a specific criterion, because we know how important this area is to the community and all the work the community has put into articulating a vision for the area through various planning documents, we want to spend a few minutes talking about how this project furthers the vision set forth in the 40 West Arts District Framework Plan. Even though this plan was adopted after the application was submitted and isn't technically applicable to the application, we still want to talk about how those things relate to each other. This project will support artistic land uses within its proposal to create the sculpture walk along the west side of the property and is to establish an on-site art studio. Although the programming has not yet been established for the art studio, it remains our hope to work with the local community to determine and execute exactly what should be happening within that art studio. The project will be exactly what is envisioned here in the goals of the West 40 Arts District Framework Plan. A transformative destination in a smaller loop and a long-lasting community amenity. As those who are familiar with the property know, this property is not particularly pedestrian friendly at the moment. This project will considerably improve the public realm on all four sides of the property, connecting with the 40 West Art Line, as you can see on this map. This slide shows some of the other goals from the 40 West Arts District Framework Plan that are furthered by the project, including things such as integrating with development, embracing opportunities to enhance the art line experience by incorporating art, placemaking, and enhanced streetscapes with new development and adaptive reuse projects. That's exactly what we're doing here, integrating art within the development, enhancing the streetscapes, and engaging in placemaking as part of the new development. Now I'll turn it back over to Shelby to show you some renderings of the site so you can visualize how it will look.
Last but not least, we wanted to share some visuals of what, once grown, this site can look like with the improved pedestrian connectivity, plaza outdoor space, and just redevelopment overall. This is a view from the southwest corner of the site, showing that pedestrian walk, the fuel canopy in the building up against the right-of-way in the bottom corner. View from the northwest corner, that pedestrian area that is north of the structure with a pergola, some seating, and just nice green vegetation. We understand it may not always look like that, but once it is fully grown, that is fully the intent. Just an overall look, looking from the northeast corner, again, you can see that outdoor pergola area. That green space that you see here in the bottom is where that pond will go. The future art area in the kind of right-hand corner there. Southeast corner, again, you can see a nice view of all the pedestrian connectivity and outdoor spaces and clear and precise vehicular and pedestrian access within the site and to the public right-of-way. And last but not least, this is a view of where the bus station will be immediately adjacent to the Quick Trip building. That bus station is a part of the City of Lakewood Colfax improvement plans, so that bus station will be where we have seating and a ramp with accessible access directly to the Quick Trip building for convenience. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave comments on this presentation. We look forward to the Planning Commission hearing in August. Thank you all for your time.